I never thought a simple question would spark a millionaire's life-changing decision. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a sunny afternoon that felt too good to be true. I was at that little coffee shop on the corner, surrounded by laughter and the rich aroma of fresh brews. My hands trembled as I cradled my steaming mug, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. That was the moment when reality flipped itself upside down. Do you ever wonder what could happen if you just asked that one seemingly innocent question? I had innocently posed to my best friend, Clara, who was so different from me, bold, fearless. I watched as her eyes sparkled with mischief, the corners of her lips curling into an impish smile. But then, I noticed the man sitting alone at the next table, his dark sunglasses shielding him from the world. He was a mystery, an enigma in a tailored suit, the type you only see in movies. I caught flashes of gold from his wrist, the gleam of a diamond ring catching the light. My heart raced. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to my question. Do you think he's ever wanted something more? Clara whispered, breaking my trance. Like, if he asked himself what he really wanted, not just what society expects. Those words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. I felt the chill of fear creeping up my spine. What if he was waiting for someone to rekindle something deep inside him? Silence enveloped us, and I could hear my heartbeat thudding, each pulse reverberating in the stillness. I glanced at the man again, just in time to witness his pained expression morph into something sharper, a flash of anger perhaps, or regret. My stomach knotted. The tension around us twisted like a coiled spring, ready to snap. People shifted in their seats, some seemingly unaware, while others cast curious glances. The barista stopped mid-brew, listening, caught between our moment and hers. What if he's looking for a way out? Clara's voice sliced through my thoughts, and I felt a desperate urge to understand. What was in that man's heart? In that instant, our eyes locked. I could see a flicker of recognition, or was it desperation? What was I looking at? A simple question could unravel a tapestry of lives. The kind of decision that could shatter the walls we built, or breathe life into dreams unspoken. I knew then there was something extraordinary about this encounter. Something I wasn't prepared for. Go on. Ask him, Clara urged, nudging my shoulder. My palms were slick with sweat. I could barely breathe, but curiosity devoured the apprehension. My heart raced furiously. Should I risk everything for just a moment of connection? What would happen if I exposed my vulnerability? The clock ticked loudly, ticking away seconds of indecision. I moved to stand, trembling hands against the table. The world around me blurred. The man looked my way again, and I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The air felt thick, almost electric, as if something monumental was about to occur. What lay behind that silent gaze? Would I have the courage to bridge the gap between us? Or would I retreat into the safety of my own mundane life? The clock struck, marking the defining moment for both of us. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a shaky breath, I took a step closer to the man. My fingers brushed against the edge of the table, desperate for support as the uncertainty of every passing second bore down on me. The words swirled in my mind like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind, each one tugging at an unquenchable thirst for connection. Excuse me, I managed to croak, drawing his attention fully. The moment his eyes met mine, I felt the weight of vulnerability crash over me, heavier than I could have imagined. I wondered how many lives had brushed against one another in forgotten moments. And yet here I stood, at the precipice of something so profoundly human that he lowered his sunglasses, revealing eyes that were dark pools of emotion. I suddenly felt small, insignificant, but also drawn to the raw pain flickering across his face. Yes, he replied, his voice low and gravelly, barely above a whispered "Do you ever think about what you want?" The question slipped out, quieter than I intended, but laden with earnestness. In that instant, The bustling coffee shop faded away, and all I could hear was the steady thrum of my heartbeat. I could see the gears turning in his mind, a cool facade momentarily cracking that he hesitated, the tension palpable between us. What I want or what's expected of me? He countered, his gaze piercing right through me. Clara's nudges were replaced by the sharp intensity of the moment, spinning our lives into a fragile dance of honesty and fear. The silence stretched, heavy as if it were encased in glass. I could feel my chest tightening as memory played tricks on my sense, and echo of my own desires resounding in the questions I posed to him. The juxtaposition of hope and despair stirred within me. In that instant, I could sense Clara's watchful eyes, urging me to push further, to delve into the depths of this cryptic connection. Before I could reply, the man let out a breath that sounded like a confession. I've been at a crossroads, life weighed against my desires. I have everything, and yet his voice trailed off, revealing more than he intended. There was a flicker of vulnerability that caught the light, resembling a cry for understanding tucked behind layers of pretense. Maybe you should talk about it, I suggested, my heart racing with the sudden urge to offer more than just a question. You never know, someone might listen. At those words, he stiffened slightly, a wall rising back around him. What if no one understands? He replied, a shadow sweeping across his face. What if it's too late to even matter? Hope wrestled with my own fears, and I found myself leaning closer. It felt like an unspoken pact, one that bound two strangers caught in the uncertainty of life. It's never too late, I whispered, barely able to absorb my own sentiment as it hung in the air. Maybe now is your chance to change everything. That he studied me, as if recognizing something profound in the depths of my sincerity. Who are you to say what's too late? He asked, a mix of awe and skepticism flecked within his voice. You seem young. What do you know about losing yourself in life's chaos? I opened my mouth to respond, but it felt as though my own fears had risen to challenge me. The cacophony of the coffee shop swelled around us, voices blending into one another as I felt Clara's presence draw back, giving me room to navigate this emotional sea alone. Was I truly capable of understanding this man's plight? Just then, Clara's phone rang loudly, cutting through our intimate exchange like a wave crashing to shore. The sudden sound jolted both of Ushi's eyebrows furrowing as anxiety flared. He quickly slipped on his sunglasses again, a barrier crafted in mere seconds. Listen, I need to go, he said, standing up abruptly, the desperate air around us turning bitter. I felt the sting of disappointment, an unsettling chasm expanding where a connection had just begun. Wait. I called out, my heart pounding wildly. Maybe we could meet again. Talk more? His eyes held mine for a moment, glimmering with unshed emotions before the mask of indifference returned. I'm not sure that's a good idea, he replied, curtly, his voice now devoid of warmth. Before I could protest, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, leaving me breathless and reeling in the aftermath of his departure. Clara rushed to my side, her eyes wide with concern. What happened? Did you really just ask that? The feeling in my chest twisted, hardening. I don't know if it mattered, I replied, glancing outside the cafe window, watching him vanish into the streets. As the last vestiges of my hope slipped away, an unexpected thought hit me. We were both searching for answers, stuck in the chaos of our separate lives, waiting for the right moment to transform it all. Yet, as my gaze focused on the street where he had disappeared, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I leaned closer, my heart pounding anew. He was talking to a woman, his body tense, hand gesturing wildly. Something in her demeanor seemed off, frantic almost. The delight of our brief connection dimmed, replaced with an unsettling curiosity. What had he gotten himself into? In that moment, I realized that a simple question had opened the door to a gravity far beyond my comprehension, and not only for him, but for me as well. I needed to know, was our brief encounter merely the beginning, or were we both about to spiral deeper into uncertainty together? A chill ran down my spine as I watched the man interact with the woman. Her frantic gestures spoke of urgency, and though I couldn't hear their hushed exchange, the tension in the air felt palpable even from across the street. Clara, still at my side, turned her gaze toward the scene unfolding outside, her brows knitting in concern. What's going on? She whispered, mirroring my thoughts. I don't know. I replied, straining to hear the muffled conversation. Something doesn't feel right. Without thinking, I pushed through the door of the cafe, the tinkling bell above announcing my exit into the cool air outside. Clara followed, her hand gripping my arm, suddenly more an anchor than a companion. I closed the distance, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. As I approached them, I could see the woman's expression flicker with a mix of desperation and anger. I felt compelled to intervene, but what could I say? My heart raced, feeding on the uncertainty. "Hey," I called out, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Both their heads turned toward me, and for a split second, I felt the weight of their eyes focused on the unexpected interruption. The woman's anger shifted to confusion. "What do you want?" she snapped, arms crossing over her chest defensively. I glanced at the man, who stood with an intensity that pierced my resolve. I wanted to make sure everything is all right. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but the woman shot him a piercing look, silencing him. "Everything is fine. We're having a private conversation. You need to back off." I swallowed hard, a sinking feeling taking root in my stomach. "But you seem upset," I replied hesitantly, feeling the weight of their disapproval. "This doesn't concern you," she hissed, stepping closer, her eyes harsh with warning. But there was something about the man, something that pulled at me, just out of curiosity, but a strong desire to help. He glanced at me, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed the vulnerability I had seen in the cafe, now marred by fear and conflict. "Please," he said finally, his voice strained. "It's a complicated situation." Sounded pretty straightforward until I showed up, I muttered, irritation mixing with concern. A tension-filled silence loomed before him, flickering with unsaid choices. The woman let out a huff, her posture rigid, clearly frustrated. "You don't know what you're getting into," she warned, gesturing toward him before stepping back. "Maybe I don't," I replied, summoning any courage I could muster. "But it's clear you need help." The man turned his full attention to me now, and I felt the weight of his gaze wrap around me once more. "I don't want to pull anyone into my mess," he responded softly. I shook my head. "Sometimes, we don't get to choose who helps us. Just talk to me." His eyes flickered with a surge of something, doubt, fear, or a flicker of a mystery I couldn't quite place. After a long pause, he nodded slightly, and the woman shot me one last glare before storming off, her heels echoing a sharp retort against the pavement. "Thank you," he breathed, relief mingling with fresh uncertainty. "I'm sorry about her. She's a friend, but it's complicated." I exhaled, feeling the knot in my stomach begin to loosen. "It's okay. Just let's sit down somewhere." We found a nearby bench, and as we sat, a hesitant calmness settled over us. "Jake," he said, extending his hand. "Sam," I replied, and shook it tentatively, feeling the warmth of his grasp. As we sat in silence, a myriad of questions danced between us. I could see the storm brewing behind his eyes, a turmoil that drew me in. "What was that all about?" I asked finally, taking a chance. He leaned back, the weight of his life pressing down heavily on his shoulders. "I've been running from parts of my life, trying to please the people around me. I thought I had everything figured out, but his sentence drifted off into the bowels of unspoken fears. "I don't know what I want either," I confessed, sensing a shared struggle between us. "Life is messy, and so are our choices." He looked at me, surprise flickering through his eyes. "I didn't expect you to understand." "I'm not sure I do," I admitted, my voice trailing softly. "But that's all right. Sometimes we just need to sort through the chaos together." Just then, his phone buzzed in his pocket, a jarring intrusion into our fragile moment. He glanced at the screen, and the color drained from his face. "No," he muttered, almost inaudibly. "Not now." "What is it?" I pressed, concern wrapping tightly around my heart. It's my family. They're moving forward with the plans. Without me." A sudden clarity struck me. Whatever the outer layer looked like, he was caught in the throes of expectation and obligation much like me. "You don't have to go through this alone," I offered, desperate to reassure him. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, the weight of his world blossoming anew. "But what if it changes everything? What if they don't understand?" I leaned forward, drawn to the emotion unraveling in front of me. "Maybe everything needs to change. And maybe you need to be the one to show the way." For a moment, the storm in his eyes abated, replaced with a flicker of hope. But just as I thought we were making progress, his phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a familiar contact, his mother's name. bold and demanding that I in that instant. Everything shifted. His eyes widened in panic, a reflection of sheer realization. I have to answer, he blurted, scrambling to pull out his device. As he swiped the screen, I felt a grave sense of foreboding wash over me. Jake, wait. What if they push you to make a decision right now? He held the phone to his ear, clearly torn between two worlds. As the conversation began, I stood, the weight of the unfolding drama pulling at me more than I anticipated. I wanted to stay, to help navigate whatever was unraveling, yet the distance between us seemed to stretch like a chasm. I glanced back at him, every instinct urging me to remain, but the air crackled with the intensity of secrets poised on the edge of revelation. The situation had become more complicated than I could have imagined, and just as I turned away, his voice rang out shakily. Wait, Sam, don't go. We need to talk about this. I halted in my steps, heart racing as I debated whether to give in to the impulse of uncertainty or to plunge into the deep unknown. Perhaps a simple question had sparked something life-altering. Yet as I stood at the precipice of this moment, a new fear settled in that the biggest change of all might be the one I wasn't ready to face. The park was washed in a golden hue, though the soft light seemed cold to me, struggling to break through the tension. The leaves rustled overhead, whispering secrets I felt too burdened to hear. Jake's voice echoed in my mind as I tried to make sense of what had just erupted between us. That I turned back, his plea still piercing through my thoughts. Sam, don't go. We need to talk about this. His urgency drew me in, as if he were an anchor in turbulent waters, but I hesitated. What could I truly offer him? I had never faced a dilemma as profound as what I sensed weighed upon him. His family's expectations loomed large, and I could feel the heavy burden of his indecision threatening to shatter the brief connection we had forged. I took a step back toward him, drawn like a moth to a flame. You can't let them decide your path for you. Jake's eyes were wide and frantic as he held the phone, the conversation with his mother drowning out the world around him. I know, he said, his voice quaking, but they won't accept anything less than what they want. They're there depending on me. Maybe it's time you start depending on yourself, I urged, my own voice quivering with the unsteady truth of my words. He turned a painful gaze on me, and I saw the conflict contorting his features. What if I lose everything? This call could decide my entire future. Or it could set you free, I insisted, stepping closer, offering my presence as a lifeline. Isn't your happiness worth that risk? He fell silent, his gaze flicking from the phone to my eyes, searching for something validation or solace, maybe both. Just as I dared to hope he might take my admonition to heart, the tension in his shoulders betrayed his inner turmoil. Sam, I began hesitantly. Then, with a shaky breath, he turned away, speaking softly into the phone, his voice trembling as he responded to his mother. Chills spread through me, quickly replaced by an all-consuming dread. I was about to witness the fracture of someone who had become unexpectedly significant to me. That I backed away slowly, my heart thudding in my chest. Maybe I should have stayed a stranger. Maybe it would have been easier for both of us. But at that moment, before I could stop myself, my feet took a deliberate step back, my instincts screaming that this wasn't just about Jake, it was about me, too. I needed to thrive beyond the chaos of my own life. And here I was, tangled in his. Turning my back to him felt like tearing away a piece of my own soul, but I couldn't watch him break apart. Sam. Sam. Please, his desperate call implored me to return, pulling at my heart like a puppet on a string. Before I could respond, a voice crackled through the phone, a harsh tone that echoed with authority. You listen to me, Jake. We don't have time for this nonsense. Your father is counting on you. His eyes widened further, panic and confusion painting his features with an unsettling mix. Mom, I'm trying to explain as he struggled. I felt the world around me dim, the sounds blurring into muted colors. Watching him crumble under the weight of expectations clawed at my heart and made my own uncertainties bubble to the surface. I wished to reach out to him, to show him that he had someone who understood his fear of the future, but instead, I recoiled. My own fears felt too raw, too exposed. Jake, you can't be the man they want without losing who you are, I shouted, more forcefully than intended. The words hung in the air like a fragile thread. The silence stretched between us, and I regretted my outburst immediately. His eyes flitted toward me, a combination of hurt and realization, and in that moment, I saw everything we had skimmed over, the pain of choice, the fear of consequence. He lowered the phone, focusing intently on me. "You don't understand," he said, voice breaking. "If I walk away from this, if you walk away from them, maybe you'd finally walk toward yourself." I countered gently, hoping he could see the truth I believed resided in the depths of his soul. Tears sprang into his eyes, cutting through the facade of strength he had tried to project. The vulnerability in him was a mirror to my own struggles, had always been defined by what others expected from me too. Suddenly, the tension shattered like glass upon impact. "Mom, I can't." Jake's voice cracked, and the vulnerability poured forth in waves. "I can't live my life for you. Not anymore." His words shattered the silence, resonating deeply within me as I stood rooted to the ground, my own heart beating in tandem with his release. The moment hung precariously. The choice was no longer his alone. My own realization hid a liberating truth that came with its own tumult. "Sam," he said, looking at me with newfound determination, "what if I lose everything?" "Then we'll figure it out together," I whispered, a fragile promise woven into the air between us. But even as those words left my lips, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The piercing shrill of a siren echoed through the park, a sound that reverberated like a warning through the stillness. Instinctively, I turned my head to spot a police car barreling down the road, lights flashing ominously. That I glanced back at Jake, and in that split second, everything I feared about my own life returned like a tidal wave. A nagging compulsion gripped me, that something dark and inevitable was lurking just beyond the corner of our moment, threatening to pull us apart just as it had brought us together. "Sam," he called again, a sense of urgency crackling in his voice. "We need to talk about this." But the world felt unsteady, the path ahead murky. "Jake," before I could finish my thought, a figure stepped forward from the side of the park, a shadow materializing with earnest intent. The stranger's presence intensified the tension, and instinctively, my stomach dropped. Something clicked. The throbbing unseen forces ripping through our fragile moment would soon make themselves known. Nothing would ever be the same again. The stranger approached us with a measured stride, his dark coat flapping slightly in the breeze. He had an air of authority that sent a chill down my spine. I instinctively stepped closer to Jake, seeking his comfort in the storm that was brewing. The weight of the moment felt like it could crush us if we allowed it. "Jake Layton," the stranger called out, his voice deep and commanding, cutting through the synthetic calm of the park. "Why, yes," Jake replied, his voice wavering, revealing the underlying fear I had come to know too well. A thread of dread knitted itself tightly around my heart. "Jake, I'm here to discuss your future." The man's eyes shone with an intensity that made me feel as though he were dissecting Jake's very soul. "Your family has been in contact with me. They want what's best for you, and I'm here to ensure you don't make any hasty decisions." My chest tightened at the thought that Jake's parents had reached out to this man, seeking to corral him back into a rigid structure that felt so foreign to the bond we had been forming. I could almost hear his mother's strident voice, echoing through the moments we had just shared, clawing at the fragile connection built on vulnerability and sincerity. "I don't want to discuss my future with you," Jake said, newfound fire entering his voice. The spark was still small, but it burned brighter than before. "I need to figure this out for myself." "Son, let's not make this more complicated," the stranger responded smoothly, although the hint of impatience crept into his tone. "You know your family wants what's best. A power broker can't be just anybody. It's a heavy responsibility." The words were loaded, each one drenched in the expectations Jake had fought so hard against. I couldn't bear to watch him wrestle with his identity against the backdrop of another authority figure. "Maybe I don't want that life." Jake's voice rang out like a bell, echoing through the park. The declaration hung in the air, creating ripples of uncertainty and possibility. The stranger's expression shifted slightly, something unreadable flashing through his eyes before it steadied once more. "But do you really know what you're turning your back on? Your father is counting on you to take over the family business, to build something great. You would be walking away from a life of privilege, security, everything you've known, a life of privilege that isn't mine." Jake shouted, tears glistening in the corners of his eyes, reflecting the turmoil inside. The stranger looked momentarily taken aback, but quickly regained his composure. "Your family cares about you, Jake. They want you to succeed, and this is your chance to fulfill your potential. Maybe their potential, Jake muttered, a soft swell of resentment threading through his voice. But what about mine? I stepped forward, the emotional furnace burning inside me. Jake, you deserve to be happy, to pursue what you want, not simply what is expected of you. The stranger's gaze shifted to me, their intensity narrowing. And who are you to dictate what he desires? You're a distraction in a time of critical decision-making. For a moment, I felt like a ghost in my own body. The weight of his words pressed hard against my heart. I was an outsider looking in, but the connection I felt with Jake tethered me to this moment. I'm someone who wants better for him. He deserves a voice, just like you. A flicker of something, maybe respect or feigned interest, passed through the stranger's features. But before he could retort, a faint sound broke our tense standoff. A soft whimpering from the nearby playground interrupted the charged atmosphere. All heads turned in unison. A little girl cradled her scraped knee, tears streaming down her cheeks. Instinctively, Jake and I shifted toward her. It was as if the world had shifted focus, throwing aside our heaviness for a moment of innocence. "Hey," Jake said gently, kneeling before her. "What happened?" The girl sniffled, her small voice quivering. "I felt I wanted to swing higher." Jake's expression softened, instinctively mirroring his protective instincts. He reached into his pocket, producing a small bandage. "Here, let me help you." As the stranger watched, I held my breath, marveling at Jake's ability to care yet again in the face of chaos. His heart ablaze with empathy even when his own world felt fracturing. "Sam, what if I lose everything?" Jake's earlier question lingered, intertwined with this moment of sweetness and truth. I felt the ache of his heart, torn between what he could become and who he truly was. "Then maybe you'll find something even better," I whispered, my voice barely above the rustling leaves. But just as a fleeting smile broke upon the little girl's face, the tension recoiled like a snake, unyielding and potent. The stranger cleared his throat abruptly, drawing our attention back to him. "Jake, we need to leave. Your family is waiting for you." My stomach churned, realizing all at once that Jake's ability to help that girl could not overshadow the overwhelming expectation that loomed like a storm cloud. He turned his gaze back to me, uncertainty swimming in his eyes. "Sam, what if?" But before he could finish, a wrenching realization coursed through me as the trees began to tremble, as if sensing the destabilizing shift. I didn't want him to walk away, yet the world around us felt perilously unsteady. "Jake," my breath caught in my throat. "We need to focus on you." As I spoke, the sirens crescendoed once more, blending eerily with the urgency pulsing between us like an unbreakable tether. The park was once more swirling with tension, peril unfolding in a slow, insidious dance. Time was slipping through our fingers, and the shock was reverberating on the edges as he rose to face the stranger and the reality he now had to confront. "Sam," his words faded into a crescendo of anxiety around us. What lay ahead was an uncharted path, and before I could brace myself for whatever darkness lingered in the shadows, I was struck by a crushing thought that urged for clarity. What if this moment dictated the rest of our lives? And just as a silence fell, the stranger's phone buzzed, pulling him from the moment entirely. He glanced down, and for the briefest second, his expression twisted as a sense of alarm crossed his features. "Jake," he started, his voice thick with urgency. "Your family needs you now more than ever." And there it was, the revelation that the ground beneath us was shifting once more, a truth poised to unravel everything. As Jake's wide eyes locked onto mine, a single question pierced the air with terrifying potential. What did they find? My heart pounded, an unanswered question echoing between us, leaving both our futures hanging precariously in the balance. The air around us was electric, charged with unspoken fears and the weight of impending decisions. The moment stretched beyond what felt bearable, and I searched Jake's eyes for any sign of direction in the chaos that loomed ahead. The stranger's phone buzzed again, a jarring reminder of the urgency hanging over our heads. "They found something," Jake whispered, his voice shaking as he took a hesitant step back, distancing himself from the stranger's commanding presence. "What does that mean?" The stranger was uncharacteristically silent, his face a mask of composure failing under the pressure of whatever revelation was chipping at the edges of our already frayed reality. I watched Jake, his brow furrowed, muscles taut. Caught in a conflict I was desperate to help him navigate. "Jake, you don't have to listen to him," I urged, desperate to pull him away from the dangled promise of his family's aspirations. "You can decide for yourself." But Jake's mind was a tempest, swirling with uncertainty. What if they're in trouble? What if this isn't just about me? The flicker of a flickering light amidst shadows ignited a whirlwind of concern. "Well, face it together," I pressed, but a part of me felt a fracture forming as I recognized how dire the stakes had become. The stranger shifted impatiently, his eyes narrowed, almost predatory. "Your family is waiting, Jake. They're counting on you to step up." "No." Jake's voice cracked, the fierce passion of defiance rising again. "I won't just be a pawn in their game." The little girl stood forgotten behind him, her injuries tended, but the hurt in her gaze reflected the fragility of innocence against the harshness of reality. "Sometimes, you have to let others fight their battles," the stranger said coolly, his voice tempered with an icy calm. "You think you know better than your family? They raised you for this." In a cage, Jake shot back, raw honesty spilling out of him like a river. "I can't just be what they want me to be. I want more for my life, and if they found something, it might mean it's time to break free for good." I held my breath, feeling a surge of encouragement swell in my chest. But I couldn't dismiss the nagging doubt creeping in like fog. Could he truly escape from these expectations? My heart ached in apprehension of the bond we shared clashing against the reality of the pressures he was facing. With that second buzz of the stranger's phone, a tide shifted, the urgency in his voice deepened. "Jake, listen carefully. Your father's actions place our family's reputation in jeopardy. It's bigger than you realize." "What actions?" Jake questioned, his voice strained. "We need to leave, now?" The stranger's insistence sliced through the warmth of our earlier connection like an icy dagger. "What did they find?" Jake pressed again, desperation forging his resolve. "Tell me." I felt the world collapse into silence, and with it, a knot of terror twisted in my stomach. I scanned the park, once a safe haven, now spinning with tensions that felt like a storm billowing just beyond the horizon. "It's not my place to share that with you. I'm here to guide you to your responsibilities," the stranger replied, shielding the truth with defense mechanisms tested over time. But Jake wasn't ready to back down. The echoes of his father's expectations weighed heavily, each beat of his heart opposing a life already pinned by another's design. "If they're in danger, if my family's name is at stake, then I need to know, not as a pawn, but as their son." The stranger's annoyance flared momentarily before settling into a cold stoicism. "This isn't the time for idealistic thoughts, Jake. You must understand the implications of your family's status. However, you have a choice to make, but it's crucial we move now." The little girl, once a beacon of brightness, began to fidget, sensing the tension escalating like a storm brewing above us. "Mister, is everything okay?" she asked softly, her innocent gaze tearing at the frayed seams of my heart, reminding me of the purity we may be sacrificing in this relentless fight against fate. "Everything will be fine," Jake replied, his tone softer as he knelt back to her level. A fleeting moment of parallel tenderness amidst rising chaos. "Just a little confusion." I felt the heat of Jake's determination sidling close to desperation, his connection to me tautening as he wrestled aboard an emotional roller coaster propelled by family loyalty, yet colliding with self-identity. "Sam." Before he could finish that thought, the stranger spoke sharply. "This is not the time for hesitations. We leave or risk everything." A dread like lead began to settle in my gut. The weight of choices pressed against my chest, a relentless squeeze of anxiety that threatened to choke me. Jake's uncertainty flashed in his eyes as the stranger crossed his arms defiantly. The agonizing question that reverberated in my head clawed for dominance: was it Jake's freedom we would fight for, or would the chains of expectation entrap him once more? And the cliff where we stood teetered on what would come next, an anguished decision at the precipice of hope or despair. Jake's breath hitched, words unformed as the tension coiled tighter. "What will happen if I refuse?" The stranger's eyes darkened, revealing the peril just beneath the surface. "If you refuse, everything falls apart. Your future and your family." Then, within that charged moment, my mind reeled with the possibility of losing not just Jake, but everything we had begun to build. As the stakes rose, so did my need to fight to uncover the very truth Jake so desperately sought. But I couldn't yet see what the consequences lay ahead. A deafening silence engulfed us as I dared to look into his eyes, anchoring my unwavering resolve to support him, no matter the outcome. Whatever path he chose, I needed him to know one thing: I'm right here with you, I whispered fervently, grasping his hand tightly, the connection sparking with an electric pulse, waiting to see which direction this storm would carry us. But all the while, the imminent question hung like a suspended note held far too long, ready to break into silence or catastrophe. What if everything we knew was only the beginning of something much bigger than ourselves? The air was thick with unspoken words as Jake and I shared that moment, his grip on my hand tightening with an urgency that meant far more than mere reassurance. My heart beat wildly, caught between the desperation in his eyes and the cold, calculated threat lurking just beyond our immediate understanding. I can't run away, Jake said, determination mingling with fear, not when I might lose everything that matters to me. His voice trembled ever so slightly, but the resolve didn't waver. I could see Ith's love for his family warred against his desire for independence. But just as I was about to voice my unwavering support, another buzz echoed from the stranger's phone, shattering the frail silence around us. You need to make this choice, Jake, he urged, his voice a low growl now, filled with impatience. Before it's too late. Too late for what? My question lingered like a specter, heavy in the charged atmosphere. The little girl shifted nervously beside us, her small fingers grasping the hem of her shirt, sensing perhaps that the adults were dancing around truths that could shake souls. Your family is caught in a web of deceit, the stranger hissed, impatience making his eyes flash dangerously. And you are their only way out. What deceit? Jake pressed, voice rising to a crescendo of frustration born of anguish and helplessness. But the stranger remained tight-lipped, his forehead creasing as if the weight of our conversation was squeezing him into a corner. The little girl, sensing the tension spiraling around her, spoke timidly. Mister, I lost my mom. Are you going to take him away too? Her innocent question pierced like a blade, the air around us growing colder still. I could see the emotion cracking Jake's resolve, but it was my own heart that began to squeeze painfully at the plea in her voice. None of us should have to fight against a cruel fate, and yet here we stood. Of course not, the stranger replied swiftly, perhaps too swiftly. That's not the intention. Yet even as he said the words, the hesitation in his voice rang hollow. I could feel Jake's turmoil, how each moment dragged in the weight of his decisions. We can't just leave everyone behind, he said, a note of desperation creeping in. What about the people who are counting on us? Count on you. They're waiting for a pawn to make the move intended for him, nothing more. The stranger's tone shifted, a sharpness underscoring his words. This isn't a game of chess, Jake. Decisions have consequences. The challenge within his words hung between us, heavy and palpable. But there was a fleeting softness still inside the chaos, a diminutive warmth that throbbed with the power of connection. And as my hand hardly let go of his, I saw a flicker in Jake's eyes. Sam, if I try to fix things for them, what will it cost us? Jake, whatever it costs, we'll face it together, I encouraged, my voice steadying despite the rapid cadence of my heart. His gaze held mine longer, and in that moment, all the fears danced with flickers of defiance. Then, suddenly, an unexpected kindness erupted from nowhere. A passerby, a woman carrying a small bouquet of flowers, halted her path before us. Excuse me, she said, a soft smile breaking through her worry. You seem troubled. If these are meant for someone dear, I think they'd love to hear it's okay to be scared, but to take that step forward when you're ready. The quiet warmth of her words washed over us, creating a tender moment amidst the storm. Jake's face softened, the lines of worry easing slightly. That's nice of you. For some, it's the hardest thing to do, following your heart amidst fear, she continued, her voice gentle yet firm. Don't let the weight of expectation keep you from flying. And with that, she extended the flowers toward Jake, an unexpected offering of hope wrapped in vibrant blossoms. He hesitated before taking them, a spark igniting in his eyes. A small act of kindness bestowed by a stranger might just be the lifeline he needed. Yet, the moment shattered as the stranger's phone buzzed again, more frantic this time. Time is running out, he snapped, urgency erupting from his voice as he turned away from us. seeming almost to dismiss the momentary light that had sparked within the chaos. Jake's gaze flickered between the flowers and the man who loomed in wait, fear mixing with an emerging sense of resolve. "What happens if I choose to stay?" he asked, his voice steadier now, tinged with a newfound determination. "Chaos will reign," the stranger replied coldly. "Your family's reputation will be tarnished, potential lost forever, because in their eyes, failure is a luxury we cannot afford. But that's a price not for you to carry alone, should you choose." Jake stood there, the flowers still clutched in his hand, while I could almost see the gears in his mind turning. What price was he willing to pay? He slowly turned to the little girl, who still watched with those big, innocent eyes, and the resolve crystallized in his expression. "Your family isn't just about a name, is it?" he murmured softly. But before he could voice his revelation, the stranger's phone buzzed again with a flood of alerts and urgent plea mixed with what sounded like desperation. A voice broke through the tension. But it wasn't the stranger's, and unexpected contact filled the airwaves, chilling me to my core. "Jake," the voice crackled, panic laced through the connection. "They need you now. You're the only one who can stop this." Those words echoed into the silence. The world around us blurred, and I felt the ground shift beneath our feet. With that revelation, a million choices crystallized before him, the weight of a family trapped in turmoil balanced against his uncertain freedom. And I knew, without a doubt, this confrontation with destiny would demand a sacrifice neither of us was prepared to make. With Jake caught in that precarious balance, I felt the ground teetering, and the question hung in the air as a harbinger of the tempest yet to come. Could he sacrifice his own desires to save those he loved? Or would he risk it all for the sake of his own freedom? The moment made my pulse race, but more than that, it ignited a flame of urgency, pleading with Jake to realize there may not be a way back if he stepped too far outside the lines drawn by others. And whatever choice he makes, it will forever change the canvas of our lives, threading new chapters laced with unclear paths, tangled in hopes and fears lingering like embers waiting to ignite. The weight of Jake's decision loomed larger than ever, each second stretching infinitely, as if time itself could sense the gravity of the moment. My heart ached for him, every beat resounding with the tumult of emotions swirling in the air like dust caught in a sunbeam, beautiful yet suffocating. "Jake," I whispered, feeling the need to pull him back from that abyss where desperate choices beckoned. His eyes, filled with both fire and ice, held the flicker of a million thoughts as he stared into nothingness. "If you choose to protect your family, remember that their love for you should never come from fear, but from trust." He nodded slowly, but the uncertainty etched deep into his brow told me that the whispers of his conscience were louder than my reassurances. The stranger stood rigid, his gaze unwavering as he observed Jake's indecision. "Every choice carries weight," the stranger said quietly, as if willing to shed some darkness for a moment. "But only you can determine if you're ready to shoulder that burden. Choose wisely, Jake. You need to harness that fire within you." The stray woman, having seen enough, gently placed a hand on Jake's arm, her eyes shimmering with empathy. "Do what your heart tells you," she said softly, a motherly warmth emanating from her. "The clearest path is often the hardest to walk, but it is also the one that resonates with who you are." The little girl tugged at my sleeve, her innocence like a soft balm on our frayed nerves. "Can you really stop them?" she asked, her voice an echo of hope wrapped in fear. "My mom said that sometimes, when choices get hard, brave people find a way." Her unguarded belief struck me with the force of a tidal wave. I turned to Jake, who was visibly wrestling within himself, the tumult turning his thoughts into a whirlwind. He looked at the girl, then at the flowers still grasped tightly in his hand, a metaphor for the vibrant life waiting to blossom amidst the thorns of obligation. "There's more at stake here than just you," I added, feeling the urgency in my voice rise. "Your freedom means so much more than an escape. Think about what you would be returning to not just the people you love, but the trust they place in you." But as I spoke, the stranger shifted, his phone lighting up like a siren's call, urgency radiating off him like ripples in a pond. "Enough of this," he growled, breaking the intensity of our moment. "The clock is ticking. If you refuse to act, you'll regret the choice made by inaction far more than the choice made facing the truth." Jake's gaze sharpened, the flickers of fire igniting again as his brow furrowed. The stakes were high, but it was the girl's wide eyes that tore through the noise, offering clarity amidst the chaos. "Can't you be brave, mister?" she pressed, determination rising in her small frame. "You're a hero, I know it." For a split moment, I saw the genuine admiration in her gaze flicker with hopeful sparks. Her unwavering belief in Jake shattered whatever doubt lingered in the air. His chest rose and fell heavily, and for that heartbeat, it felt as though the world held its breath. Before a choice could be made, the phone buzzed again, shattering what felt like fragile clarity. It brought with it words that sent a chill racing down my spine, stealing the warmth from the air. "They've moved. You're out of time." The stranger's voice morphed into an unsettling blend of urgency and menace. "The deal is off the table. Choose now, while you still have a chance to act." "Act on what?" Jake insisted, the resolve slipping momentarily, stolen away by the unknown. "What is all this really about?" The stranger's eyes darkened, a flicker of anger igniting them. "It's about survival. You either stand up and protect those you love, or accept the knowledge that your inaction will cost them everything. They're coming for them, Jake." The air thickened again, heavy with every unspoken word that now felt impossibly urgent. I could feel the world pressing in, the choices clawing at Jake's mind with an intensity that felt suffocating. And just before he could respond, there was a commotion in the distance, the sound of voices rising, footsteps marching with unmistakable authority. My heart dropped as dread fluttered violently within me, realizing with terrifying clarity that outside forces were colliding with our fragile moment. The warmth and hope dwindled, uncertainty worming its way back into the seams of our resolve. "Jake," I urged, desperation weaving through my words. "Whatever you choose, choose now before it's too late." But before he could answer, the sound of sirens grew nearer, piercing through the twilight of our collective hope like a knife. The realization crashed over Usain. A force of fate was barreling down upon us, on the verge of uniting chaos and fear, transforming the delicate air we shared into something altogether darker. With a frantic look, Jake's eyes darted between me, the little girl, and the stranger as the weight of his world pressed down like a storm. And just then, before he could complete his thought, the stranger's voice cut through the chaos, dripping with urgency and foreboding. "You have to decide, Jake. Are you going to step up and fight for your family or step back and watch them suffer?" The question rang within me as reality narrowed down to that one sharp moment of choice. The forces closing in could mark one path or another, but whichever he chose would forever change the course of not just our lives, but countless others. The sirens heralded an imminent reckoning, a bringing forth of truths we were not ready to meet. With a pounding heart, I held my breath as I watched Jake grapple with the monumental decision before him, aware that the storm was about to break, and whatever lay on the other side could either heal our fractures or shatter us irreparably. As the wail of the sirens approached, reverberating through our tense little circle, the world seemed to draw in a sharp breath, leaving only the unrelenting thrum of our racing hearts. Time hung heavy, thick with the weight of possibilities, each shimmering like a mirage on the horizon distorted by fear. "Jake," I whispered again, this time my voice trembling with urgency as I reached for his hand, clutching it like a lifeline. "Remember the love. Think of the little girl off what she believes in." But Jake's gaze remained distant, lost in an internal battle that churned like a tempest. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty collided within him, each pulling him further from certainty. I could see the fracture lines deepening across his face as the choice loomed before him. It felt as if the universe had paused, watching, waiting for him to tip the scales one way or the other. The stranger's phone buzzed incessantly, a persistent reminder of the encroaching danger. He shot quick, darting glances toward the entrance of the alley, where shadows began to loom ominously. His facade of calm cracked slightly, revealing the humanity lurking beneath his cold exterior. "You need to move, Jake. If they find you," here his voice trailed off, laden with the gravity of unspoken horrors. The little girl stood firmly beside me, her wide eyes shimmering with the purity of her hope and belief. "Mister," she pleaded, her small voice breaking through the tension like a ray of light piercing through dark clouds. "You can be a hero. Heroes protect their families, right?" Her sincere affirmation acted as a balm to the churning dread that clouded the air. "Please, Jake," I added, feeling the urgency rising within me like an unquenchable flame. "You owe it to her. To yourself, though, everyone waiting for you. You have a chance to rewrite this narrative." That flicker of hope ignited something deep within him. Almost imperceptibly, Jake's posture shifted, leaning into my touch as he exhaled a long, shuddering breath that released some of the angst locked within him. For a moment, it felt as if clarity danced just beyond his reach, but the noise grew louder, a cacophony of footsteps thundering towards us, threatening to barrel through our sanctuary of indecision. The cherry-red lights flickered against the damp pavement, casting frantic shadows that twisted in the growing unease. "Time is up," the stranger asserted, edging forward, urgency bleeding into his voice. "Make your choice now, or everything you love will shatter into pieces." Suddenly, Jake's eyes sparked with something fresh, a determination forged in defiance against the encroaching fear. "I can't leave them," he murmured, mostly to himself, but loud enough for the little girl to hear. "But if I fight, if I stand up, what if it only puts them in more danger?" The knot in my stomach twisted tighter, realizing that his heart was still in conflict, wavering on the cusp of conviction and trepidation. Thoughts raced through my mind, swirling together in a frantic tapestry of hope and despair. "But running means letting fear dictate your future," I urged, invoking the strength I saw in him. "You have to trust that your instinct, the love inside you, will guide the way." His breath quickened as the sirens blared closer, mirroring the frantic rhythm in our hearts. The shadows around us shifted, tumultuous and dreary, reflecting our fractured positions. "What if fighting isn't enough?" Jake's voice trembled, fragile beneath the weight of looming decisions. "Then you fight harder," I said fiercely, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "Or you find another way. But first, you have to make a choice." A silence enveloped us amidst the chaos, yet it was punctured by memories of love, trust, and strength. Jake stared at the girl, the embodiment of innocence and hope, her faith unwavering, despite the quaking fear that surged beneath the surface. I squeezed his hand tighter, hoping he could feel the rush of belief I offered him. And then, in what felt like an eternity, Jake inhaled deeply, something akin to resolve settling in his expression. "I need more than just courage," he said, eyes narrowing with purpose. "I need..." Before he could finish, that ominous sound of footsteps reached us, echoing with the authority of those who would stop at nothing to impose their will. The crowd was almost upon us, and in an instant, the door of the alley flew open. A flash of dark uniforms and faces twisted into temporary masks of authority appeared, illuminated by the harsh glare of a spotlight from behind them. "Jake," I hissed, the fear creeping back into my veins as urgency washed over me. "They're here." He reeled, the moment of decision torn away by the reality of the chase that now bore down upon us. The stranger's eyes glinted with hardened resolve. "We don't have time." And that's when, amidst the chaos, the past swirled around us. Ingrained fears collided with flickers of hope, and the barest glimpse of a path emerged, a choice that would define everything for Jake, the girl, and all of us huddled in this fragile moment. "Run!" I yelled, adrenaline and ferocity propelling my words into the night air like an incantation. "Find your strength, Jake." With that, everything spiraled, and as Jake turned to face his fate, his expression a tumultuous canvas of resolve and dread, a siren echoed once more, its chilling notes heralding the climactic fraying of all that he held dear. In that moment, amidst the cacophony of uncertainty and despair, I could only pray that he would choose to fight, knowing that where he would land, we would all be bound together by the rippling consequences of his choice, and whatever awaited us would reshape our lives forever. As the echoes of footsteps laced with authority reverberated through the alley, confusion enveloped me like a heavy fog. I could hardly breathe, feeling the suffocating weight of everything spiraling out of control. Yet, amid the chaos, Jake stood at the crossroads of his life, his expression morphing into the fierce determination I had sensed lived inside him all along. That spark I'd glimpsed before blazed brighter now, a beacon piercing through the consuming darkness surrounding us. "Sam," he breathed, vulnerability cracking his steadfast exterior as his eyes bore into mine. "What if I don't know what to choose?" The fear echoing in his voice stemmed not just from the imminent chaos, but from the unseen threads that tethered him to a life dictated by expectations. I could feel the urgency mounting, the stakes higher than before as the sorting of loyalties loomed just outside the threshold of our sanctuary. But relegating his path to those messy, entangled lines drawn by fate felt wrong. He needed to grasp this moment for himself. Choosing to fight means you're finally choosing yourself. Jake, I urged earnestly, taking a step closer, wanting desperately to stand as an anchor in this whirlwind. Ultimately, this is about reclaiming your truth. You hold the power within you to shift everything to as the sirens escalated, shadows swarming ever closer. I felt a swell of emotions coursing through my fear, longing, and unwavering belief in the man standing before me. I looked deep into his eyes, searching for assurance amid the misgivings that momentarily flickered there. What would he choose? He took a step back, almost involuntarily, his gaze shifting momentarily toward the path that followed family duty. But what if it changes everything? He questioned, uncertainty rising like a tide. What if I lose them, or worse? Then you'll find something even more beautiful, I reminded him gently, my voice tinged with conviction. Your own happiness, your own truth, and sometimes liberation means letting go of what holds you back. You're not just a part of someone else's story. You are the author of your own. The sound of authority grew louder, closer, a stark reminder that he needed to make his decision. Reaching out, I grasped his hand tighter, a lifeline that transferred the weight of my belief in him into that moment. Whatever you choose, I'm here with you. We faced this together. His eyes flared, seeking understanding in the tumultuous world around us. The juxtaposition of fear and resolve danced in his soul, wrestling for dominance. And for a split second, he appeared to tumble into the depths of those eternal possibilities, the futures diverging right in front of him. Without a word, Jake shifted slightly, a reawakening glimmer igniting within him. You're right, he breathed, a resolve beginning to seep through the cracks. I've run for too long. The truth may tear us apart, but maybe it will also set us free. I need to confront this, to confront them. As those words escaped his lips, it felt as if we had crossed the threshold from uncertainty into the realm of possibility, the sirens roaring like distant thunder, yet failing to dampen the rising pulse of determination that surged between us. Together, we faced down the impending storm, the oppressive weight of expectations and fear grounding me, but also lifting me into a space where courage blossomed. Yes, I exclaimed quietly, my heart swelling with pride. You're finally taking a step toward who you truly are. But before tension could spiral into a tangible reality, the uncertainty erupted like a predator stalking its prey. The shadow of authority behind us felt threatening as panic threaded through the air and urgency mingled with resolve, drawing nearer with each heartbeat. Jake, now. The stranger barked again, urgency swelling in his tone, yet something in his gaze betrayed the artificial facade of command. The moment held within it an expectation. We all felt the pressure mounting as the sirens blared beyond the walls we stood against. In that charged moment, I saw clarity break across Jake's face. It was as if a veil had lifted, allowing him to breathe again, to finally step out of a suffocating cage crafted by others to go. He commanded with newfound strength. We'll confront them together. I won't be a bystander anymore. I won't run. I'm ready to find my path. Those words echoed into the tumult of the encroaching noise. Fear gave way to an overwhelming love that surged through me, a pledge to navigate this storm together, regardless of the consequences. Standing united against that imminent tide felt like the first step toward freedom. But then, from the din of chaos behind us, a familiar voice broke through, a woman's voice wrought with anguish and authority. Jake, get out of there. They're going to take you. My heart sank as the recognition hit me. It was his mother, tumbling out of her own expectations and fears. The emotion unveiled something unexpected, amplifying the stakes of the game I felt we were unwilling participants in. A raw vulnerability swept through Jake, surfacing old memories intertwined with love and misunderstanding in a single breath. That no, he yelled out. The weight of that singular word felt around us as he stood grounded, feet planted in defiance. I need to confront this. It's time for the truth. As if to punctuate his resolve, I clasped his hand tighter. We do this together. We rebuild together. In that fierce affirmation, Jake turned toward the noise of authority, a light igniting within him that sparked courage across the abyss of expectation. The world around us fractured, heavier than before, but I could see the dawn of possibility blooming in that raw clash with what was and what could be. Sam, come here now. His mother's plea echoed again, frantic and scared, but beneath it, there lingered a desperate love that threaded through the chaos of loss and expectation. With a burst of empowerment thrumming through the air around us, the choice was weighed in an unstoppable current. Jake stepped forward, my hand clasped resolutely in his. Not for you, Mom. Not for anyone, but for myself. His voice rang out clear, each word imbued with the weight of boundaries being pushed and the start of an inevitable transformation. And just like that, in the swell of that pivotal moment, the authority of our shared choices washed over us, wrapping us in the magnitude of truth coming forth. Perhaps breaking those chains meant leaning on the connections forged through hope, the realization that love comes in myriad forms even when tangled with fear. Face it with me, I urged, pulling his gaze back to mine. We'll confront whatever comes next. Your heart will guide you. Eyes ablaze with raw defiance, he nodded, the beautiful intricacies of our connection once more igniting confidence in an uncertain landscape. And then, with courage bolstered, Jake turned and we faced the burgeoning storm together. As we drove that resolve deeper into the fabric of our aspirations, the shadows of self-doubt splintered away, and the sirens blared in recognition of the inevitably a future carved anew. Our hearts pounded as we stepped forward into the world ahead, knowing that this was no simple path. Yet each choice we made forged a stronger foundation not just for ourselves, but for those we loved. And in that powerful crescendo, I knew, clearer than ever, that love would guide us home. An explosion of voices swirled about us. My heart surged with unwavering faith in the unknown, ready and willing to embrace whatever lay ahead, together. We are not alone, I whispered quietly. Jake squeezed my hand tighter, his confidence shining through the darkness. And so, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, with hearts entwined, we took one unified step forward, unwilling to back down, ready to rewrite our story, anchored by the sheer truth that regardless of the storms to come, we would face them hand in hand. The light flooded through, reaching out to embrace us anew, teeming with the promise of what lay ahead, the beginning of a life reclaimed, woven together by the strands of honesty, courage, and resilient love. A simple question had sparked a million choices, each imbued with potential. And as the dawn broke overhead, I held fast to my final resolution, knowing this was only the beginning of finding our way back to who we truly were. With that first step into the chaos, Jake and I ventured forth into the unknown. And in that electrifying moment, where possibilities clashed with certainty, I uttered the words that would forever hang suspended in time, whispered faithfully into the fabric of our lives. Whatever happens, I'm right here with you. And with that, we transcended the expectations, charging forward into the bubbling uncertainty of life's infinite journey.